Welcome to another episode of Read the Room, brother. How are you?
Well, you know me, just living in the chilly northern Arizona, but I say that facetiously, knowing that you just told me off air that you just got pounded with 8 inches of snow, and that's freaking
Not that much.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And that's from 2 days after 3 days after we got probably five. So we've had over a foot, which is not bad. About 2 feet here in Virginia is normal per year, but we haven't had any for 2 years, so it's no big deal.
Wow.
Our landscaping guy will be here soon to. We have a 300-foot driveway, so white boy Bob here is not going out with his snow blower and his Nike winter pants on to snow blow the freaking driveway today. I'm not doing
Well,
it.
that's I mean, everybody needs a day off, so I
Right,
would do it personally because sometimes I need excuses to get outside and do some yard work.
right.
I obviously don't know what 8 inches of snow looks like. If we get 2 inches, I'm like, oh my god, it's
Right.
snowing. I'm a child.
You get a snowflake and you're like, sell the house, right? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, every time I stick my tongue out and I eat snow every single time, like it's my first time seeing it. So,
Well, just don't stick it on a metal pole or you'll be like that little kid in that Christmas movie, you know?
spoiler alert.
Right. So yeah, we're gonna talk about spoiler alerts today, man. I got a whole bunch of stuff to throw at you, as well as you toward me. One of them, which is kind of down the list, I'm not. I'm kind of pissed off about it, and it's the second year in a row with the woke organizers at the Australian Open, but I'll get into that later. Spoiler alerts to me are um, in movies, in a book, in a story somebody tells you about something that happened to them. But for me, they're also, in the political world, it's unexpected candidates who do well, right? They beat an incumbent, they beat the expected candidate in a primary, a third party candidate, which I think we will see cause our Democrat friends some strife this year, a little bit on the Republican side in the general, but not that much. So that's kind of what I was thinking of yesterday. And I'm like, you know what? I want to talk about that. So here we are.
So here we are. Spoiler alerts galore. So lay it on me.
So one of the spoiler alerts that I think our Democrats have to be concerned about, and also the never Trumpers out there on the Republican side, is the Justice Department is suggesting that Peter Navarro, a economist that I've followed for a long time, he also ran for Congress in the latter part of the '90s. He wasn't ready for prime time then. Um, Worked in the Trump administration, economic advisor. They want to give him 6 months in prison for ignoring a House subpoena. Doesn't that sound familiar? By the Democrats in the last Congress.
Hmm.
And so, spoiler alert, Uncle Rico, um, that could apply to Hunter Biden. That
Yes,
could
it
apply
could.
to potentially Secretary Mayorkas, all of whom, one of whom already is a private citizen. The other one's going to be a private citizen, knock wood, in 10 months when we make Biden a one termer. And that's the first thing.
Yeah. Be
That's the
careful
first
what
thing
you
out of the
wish
box.
for.
What's that?
the old adage, be careful what you wish for. You know, that's one of the things politicians, specifically in this kind of tit for tat era that we live in, is you have to be mindful of what the other side is going to do when your party is not in power. So, if you want to challenge every election, if you want to throw every politician in jail for policies you don't like, or their underlings, or this or that, it's going to come back around on the other side. And maybe that's the whole point, because they're rich enough to where they can pay the legal fees and it'll go through the legal processes. But in the meantime, these media organizations get to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a full on grift. Now, there are people that obviously need to go to jail. The problem is, like I said, it's the tit for tat thing. So once you open Pandora's box, it's hard to put Pandora back in. I believe it's impossible, but I digress.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and unfortunately, the as it's now referred to, the lawfare or warfare, if you will, to use another moniker,
I
of
love
using the
that term,
law.
by the
I
way.
know, I do too. I think it's gay as
It's
hell. It's like,
freaking
please, just
brilliant.
don't say that. Yeah,
Y-
I think
I,
it's insane.
I am so mad that I didn't think of it. Like, I'm so pissed off that I didn't think of lawfare. Like,
You could be selling T-shirts,
it's right
hats.
there, man. Like, it was,
It's like,
it practically sold
hang in
itself.
there.
And God, I was late to that. And props to, I don't know who came up with lawfare, Stephen Miller or some other bozo. Maybe it's been around for a long time and now it's just making its way back to the American lexicon. But I am a fool for having not coined that term, so I apologize.
No problem. But yeah, I agree with you in regard to the tit for tat, and what is unfortunate in this tit for tat environment is you look at case law on a given issue, and then lawyers will say to themselves, strategists like me will also say it, which is, can you take a novel, which means new, legal theory, look at a piece of the law, put forward a theory about what it could mean versus what it really does mean, quite frankly, then find a judge who's sympathetic enough to your plight, i.e., hating Donald Trump or some other, some climate related nonsense, and move that through the court system, bypassing legislative intent, not having to get to SCOTUS, to the Supreme Court, because that road has been pretty much cut off from the left, and so they're doing that with people who defy subpoenas, which happens all the time, right?
Yeah, it does. And there's a long list of politicians who have defied subpoenas and have not been held in contempt on both sides of the aisle. So we have to be wary of whenever we want to brandish this law. Like, if we're going to enforce it across the board. Now, Hunter is a private citizen, so he does not fall into these categories of politician. He's a politician's son. He is uh, a third class doo doo throwing at a blank canvas artist. That's his only job. To this day,
Right.
I I don't know what he does. He lives at his parents' house, or actually, he lives at his dad's old folks' home, which is kind of weird when you think about it. Like, I don't know too many sons that go and move into the retirement community because they're such despotic lowlifes. But and I don't know what his job is now. His job is to be
Grifter.
a celebrity of sorts
Hmm.
and an artist for his daddy's donors. So he doesn't quite fit into the normal public servant mold of the
No.
um, content argument.
Well, he's a 53-year-old that has no job.
Yeah,
Some people would call that a homeless person.
some would. Others would call it Gen Z. Others would maybe even stretch it into millennials. I mean, I know more and more young people are having to live at home thanks to the economy and the high mortgage rates and this and that. That's a topic for another time. But
Yeah.
he is a 53-year-old man living at home. Um, I don't wish that upon anybody because it's tough to be an adult going back into your parents' house. I mean, there's this dichotomy there where the parents are going to be parents, and you've been an adult living on your own. Now, me putting myself in Hunter Biden's shoes, you've been on your own, living in hotels and brothels, and you're used to a certain lifestyle. And now all of a sudden your stepmom is telling you what you can and can't do because daddy is a pacifist and loves everything that Hunter does. So
Right.
Mom Biden is the sort of hammer to his nail. So it's got to be
Right.
a little difficult going back into your parents' house and being told what you can and can't do. Like, you can't have sex in the Oval Office. That is more of a conference room for gay porn type of thing.
No
Um,
hookers in the family residence.
no hookers in the family residence. Uh, Keep your blow to yourself. Don't invite your drug dealers to the retirement home.
Right.
Things like that that can really it can really grind your gears
Just a
if
little
you're
bit.
Biden.
Hey, speaking of blow, you did see that they found blow residue on the gun case. The FBI did. They went and looked back at this 5-year-old piece of evidence, retested it, and found cocaine, which is
Yeah.
going to make it very difficult for Hunter to have the gun charge thrown out in federal court because he was actively using cocaine at the time, and you can prove that by the evidence. And B, the FBI is resurrecting it. My theory on that is when you take Jamie Dimon's two appearances, one at the healthcare conference in San Francisco a week and a half ago, and the other 3 days ago at Davos, saying Trump did all these things right, the economy, border, China, taxes, etc. That is Wall Street saying we want Trump back, and the FBI is saying we want Joe Biden out. They're both saying the same thing in that regard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Diamond's endorsement of Trump on CNBC was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic.
It was beautiful.
He presented it in a ways like, look, you guys got to be honest here. Like, let's look at the facts. Like, you may not like this about him, but last time I checked, this was better, that was better. In terms of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden specifically, seeing Kamala do the tour. Like, they've officially begun the Kamala 2024 ticket. Like, Biden hasn't been seen in a week.
Oh, at least a week. Yeah. I mean, just barely the other day, but that was for 28 seconds.
28 seconds, and all he could say is it working? No. Are we going to keep doing the same thing? Yes. Like, the epitome.
Right.
Guys, step on their toes so much with their one-liners that are just going to come back around, like Kamala on The View when she's like, "We got to remind them who brung it." All I could think of at that moment was just a slew of quick shots of who brung it. The border falling apart,
Right.
crime, drugs. I mean, the list goes on. So yeah,
Inflation, the
remind them
economy.
who
Yeah.
brung it. But
Yep.
Wall Street definitely made the signal. Like, we want Trump back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's anybody who is a minor economist who looks at the stocks and sees that we aren't barreling down, but we're starting to trend up because investors know, like, hey, there's gonna be money to be made here. So get in early. Like, Wall Street is starting to
Yeah.
signal with their investments and just the way the markets are working that we're going to see it start to tick a little bit more upwards. And it's not due to the economic policies of
Oh
Biden,
no.
it's the forecasting of Trump getting into
Mm-mm.
office.
It has to do with certainty. And so if you look at I think the Senate yesterday morning about 10:30, no, at noon hour, just at around the noon hour, passed the extended CR right into March. Markets went up 200 points. Went over to the House at about 5:15, and about 4:15, between 4:15 and 4:45. It was voted on. Markets had already stabilized up a couple hundred points, and heretofore, the 3 trading days before and into most of last week, it was in the red because of all the uncertainty, right?
Yep.
So I completely agree with that.
And for the
The
audience member that isn't very economically sound or isn't tapped into Wall Street, let me put it in layman's terms for you. Let me put it in man on the streets kind of terms. Think of Wall Street as your favorite sports betting website. Okay. They like to forecast. Everything is a gamble, predictive, if you will. They like this bet. They place money on the bet. They like this proposition or portfolio or business and invest in their future. It's the same as me betting on the money line of the San Francisco 49ers game. Things like that. So when you think Wall Street, just think white collar elitist sports betting. That's really all it is. Now, is there a lot more ins and outs, and is there a much larger web of factors? Absolutely. But let me just simplify it in terms that it's all gambling, baby.
Yeah, it is, especially Wall Street, 100%. So the other spoiler alert, and again, this is germane to the Navarro Trump spoiler alert, is you have you have Obama and Biden and Trump that unless they are unless the Supreme Court reinforces, therefore throws out the Jack Smith presidential immunity issue and says that presidents have immunity while in office and afterwards. Trump's argument is you'll have no part of his argument is you'll have no president being able to make major decisions, knowing that in 4 or 8 years he or she will then face the opposite party if they were to win, run a Justice Department and go after them. He's 100% right, which is why the
100%.
Constitution does give that to the executive branch. Again, lawyers are screwing around with air quotes novel legal theories, which are complete bullshit. And in Obama's case, he was the drone king, right? He was the deporter in chief.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he sent a drone into the Middle East that killed an American citizen who was not provided with due process. he
Mm-hmm.
could go to prison for that.
Absolutely.
Biden created the largest border crisis that is a national security crisis in the history of the United States. He could be prosecuted for that. So my gut is that both on the Chevron decision, on regulatory authority of agencies, on presidential immunity, and this ballot nonsense, those will be thrown out. And SCOTUS will make a very clear decision that says presidents have it. Uh, you cannot throw a presidential candidate off a state ballot. And with Chevron, they're going to narrow the ability of federal regulators to interpret what the law says or doesn't say. So you're going to see that coming, I think. Knock wood.
Knock on wood. Yeah, there's another novel legal theory out there that comes to mind. Critical theory. That's a novel legal
Mm-hmm.
theory. And it's kind of a cesspool of JV legal theorists coming in and trying to rewrite legal doctrine in their own idealistic sort of way. So, luckily, there's still adults in SCOTUS, and they'll be able to kind of sift through the activists' attempts at rewriting legal theory and trying to find these really, I mean, the weak cases that some of these judges are putting in front of them are insane, like insane. But hey, if we got to go through this time to make it abundantly clear, like, hey, here's where the line is drawn, do not pass go, then fine. This is
Yep.
part of the whole social experiment that we've been
Yep.
living in. Like, we've had to go through this time and see all the failures and shortcomings so that we could look back and be like, look, this doesn't work. Now, does that mean that people won't try it again and again and again and again and again? Of course not, because there's always people that cannot be told when they're wrong. But at least we will have this evidence of the last 10 years where we can point and say, this was a grift, this was a lie, this was misinformation,
Absolutely.
deception, this was bad law, la, 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 la.
Well, again, it provides clarity both for capital markets, society, people, and at the same time, it points out that in the law says the following. So, however you want to interpret what that law says, your novel legal theory is non germane, does not apply, and is not constitutional. And so I believe that the Roberts Court, and we've already seen Justice Kavanaugh suggest fairly strongly that on Chevron, and just for everybody that doesn't know what Chevron is, the Chevron decision in '84 against the oil company Chevron, the Supreme Court said that in the absence of actual language, federal regulators are allowed to interpret what the law does say in a way that fits that particular regulatory environment. And that is let loose a torrid uh, number of regulatory rules that have tortured the US economy for 4 decades. And so
Absolutely.
they're about to narrow that scope very significantly. And here's the case. I'll just touch on this very briefly. The case that was filed and won in federal court, and then the federal government has now petitioned the Supreme Court because they lost. A bunch of fishermen up the eastern seaboard were told by EPA that they had to pay for $700 a day, a monitor to be on their boat. And when they weren't on their boat, every single charter that they took, they had to report, and it was regulated and so on and so forth. And of course, there's a cost to that. and it would put a lot of these people out of business. That's a Fourth Amendment violation, illegal search and seizure. It's a First Amendment civil liberty violation, and to some extent, the 10th Amendment. We believe very strongly that by June, um, they will have rendered a decision that overturns Chevron, subsequently narrows those regulatory rules. I have 3 issues before Congress right now that will immediately impact in a favorable way. So I can't wait for it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean,
So spoiler alert.
they the regulatory committees have been getting away with some serious abuses. I mean, if you're a businessman and the most important or the highest paid employee you have is HR, your business isn't going to be doing well. So you've got these sort of pencil pushers that are making more than every single crew member on these ships, on these fishing vessels. That can't fly. Like, first it was, you have to have one of these people on there. They were like, okay, cool. You guys want to have a babysitter for us? Fine. Then they're like,
But
how
you
can
have to
we
pay
push
for the
even further?
babysitter.
Yep. You have to pay for this babysitter, and this
Mm-hmm.
babysitter is going to make a salary not commiserate with the actual fishing market, but what we deem it
It's
should
just an
be.
added cost to, it's an unfunded federal mandate, is what we refer to it as. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it is ridiculous, and that's why it's a big case that not a lot of outlets are talking about right now because it's not sexy. It doesn't have your normal ability to throw blame at MAGA Republicans or crazy blue haired liberals. So it's dealing with people on the ground level, working class individuals. And
Right.
generally, that stuff just doesn't sell.
So, spoiler alert, and I can't wait to talk about this. This is going to be so much fun. Fannie Willis and Loverboy,
Oh boy.
her little boyfriend, right,
Oh
in
boy.
Georgia. So, Trump has already been told, you're off the ballot in Colorado. Now he's back on. You're off the ballot in Maine. Now that was stayed by a state Supreme Court judge the other day. Excuse me, a federal judge the other day until the immunity question or ballot question is resolved in the Supreme Court, which will be coming in the not too distant future. Then you have down in Georgia, Fannie Willis, the Al Sharpton in a dress, um, paying her boyfriend, who is an unqualified litigator in these matters, an extra $100 an hour, so $250 an hour, Rico,
Hmm.
versus the $150 an hour that one of the most experienced litigators in the state of Georgia, who is also on this team,
Wait, wait, wait,
um,
wait, wait.
is
What?
being paid.
You
Oh yeah.
you mean that he's making more than everybody on her legal team?
Uh
Because
huh.
what she said in front of her all black convent was that this was a racial lynching, essentially,
Yeah. She played the race
and
card because that's all they got.
that everybody was paid the same. Like, if I'm in that congregation, I'm furious. I am absolutely furious that they took time away from hearing a message to hearing this broad come up in front of the
Mm-hmm.
congregation, lie to the
Right.
congregation, and basically use it as airtime for herself to air her grievances. Like,
Right.
such BS. And I know that there's people in that congregation that didn't agree with her and had to have been like, come on, guys, like, we're at church. I don't want to hear Fannie Willis complain about how
Mm-hmm.
she's being racially targeted.
Yeah, she pulled a Stacey Abrams, which we all know failed. So Chubby Charles there, little Stacey Abrams, has been doing this crap since 2018. And the last time I checked, she's still a private citizen and not an elected official. So good luck with that. Yeah, she pulled that crap in the house of God, which makes me want to throw up. But at the same time, she's a racial arsonist, like many of them are in that regard. And so it's not a surprise that she would do it in a subway, in a church, or out on the street. But
It's just so
now
gross
she's,
because she took advantage of an
yeah.
all black audience. Like she felt that she could get the most sympathy going in front of what she deems her peers, and it's
Hmm.
gross. It's just gross
Yeah, and
all around.
well, it really is. It really is. And so, it cracks me up. So, spoiler alert for her is she now has to show up in the day after Valentine's Day, on
Hmm.
February 15th, in a courtroom to discuss with a judge her potential violation of ethics rules in hiring Loverboy, which will be hilarious.
Hmm.
Simultaneously, she's being subpoenaed and trying to fight it to show up in a hearing by the ex-wife of Loverboy to make her testify of what she knew and when she knew it and what she was doing. So this guy has no legal skills other than to chase ambulances and help people get their last name changed, excuse me. But he may have some other assets that we don't know about or don't care about, Uncle Rico.
Well, one of I think he has one asset that Fanny likes specifically, and
Right.
one of my favorite little tokens, little gifts from this Fannie Willis Nathan Wade story is the fact that he might just be the hardest working American alive because he billed for a full 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that means he was on the clock while he was piping down Fanny late night.
100%.
He literally charged for his lover boy. It's fantastic. I mean, if you're gonna pull off a grift, I mean,
Did you see John Davis in the audience? Like, every day I'm hustling, hustling, hustling.
think of the gall of that. You know how unafraid you have to be to charge a full 24 hours knowing that you are alone in the office in the wee hours of the night with your known superior lover.
Right.
Like, what do you think they were doing? Let's be
Right.
honest. You think they were really coming through files and evidence? No, 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 no,
No,
no,
not
no.
at all.
She was
Not at
looking
all.
at the evidence from Article D, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely. Bling, king. Yeah, right. Absolutely. So, another spoiler alert. I'm gonna actually put these two together because it's cracking me up. Some of it I work in, the other I'm just observing. Biden keeps trying to buy young people's votes with the student loan stuff, right? Another
Hmm.
5 billion here, 5 billion there, et cetera, canceled. That is going to be litigated here fairly soon. The Supreme Court is going to have to remind the chief executive in the White House that they already told him this was illegal. When those kids who are now blowing off paying their bills, as well as others who didn't get a notification that said you don't have to pay your student loan, are now protesting and not paying theirs, more inflation, right? Three things are going to happen. They're going to be told it's illegal, he didn't have the authority, you owe your loan, and oh, by the way, the IRS is going to come after you for being late on paying your loan, and you're going to have to pay a higher loan amount with a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So that could all happen or crescendo around September of this year, 8 weeks out from an election when they're allegedly supposed to pull the lever for the ice cream eater. That to me is a spoiler alert waiting to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The other one is Democrats are reading the polls, and you've seen a number of these polls that I sent you in last couple of days about the border, and they are starting to relent on their position and shift their position towards the Republicans. When Senator Coons from Delaware, who took Joe Biden's seat when Biden became vice president for Urkel for Obama, comes out today and says, we're beginning to see that there's a problem on the border, right? Right. Look who woke up, Sleepy. Dude, I'm telling you, they got real problems. This one is their kryptonite for this election cycle.
Well, you've got uh, the dude out of Denver in
Oh, the
DC,
Denver mayor?
yeah,
Yeah,
going to
he's a schmuck.
petition them for hundreds of millions of dollars because their hospital is going bankrupt thanks
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah,
all
Denver Health.
illegal immigrants that have gone
Mm-hmm.
in there and gotten free care.
Yep.
Now they're what, 120,
135 million.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
135 million in the red.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good thing, not a good look. So, yeah,
Yep.
unfortunately, once again, we had to see the cause and effect. All these sanctuary cities that were gladly touting, campaigning, fundraising.
Yep.
Now they're having to lay in the bed shit that they made. And I'm all for it. Like, I was looking at images from, you know, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when you had these wedding tents and Xboxes and this and that. And now it's like, please stop coming. We don't have enough room, blah, blah, blah. And it sucks because there's real people being affected by this. We're seeing
100%. Yeah.
a ton of crime with a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
illegals. News story pops up every day of where they're killing somebody. Like
Well, you know who wants to do remain in Mexico?
Trump,
What politician?
a bunch. I don't
No,
know.
Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of England, wants to do remain in Rwanda with all of the Rwandan immigrants. I'm not kidding. You saw me post that the other day, like 2 days ago. So he is proposing because they're going to have elections soon, and they're going to also have a no confidence or confidence vote in their caucus. The Tories are um, they're going to they are now laser focused allegedly on getting immigrants on buses and planes and sending them back to Rwanda. So I'm coining it "Remain in Rwanda" for 10 Downing Street.
Good. I have another spoiler alert for you. Spoiler alert. When Trump becomes president and the deportations begin,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
look at all of these former sanctuary city altruistics turned anti immigration to revert back to the sanctuary city rhetoric and start to
Mm-hmm.
denounce the racist, abhorrent President Trump for upending
100%.
families. You will see it. The same politicians right now that are crying for the White House to
Mm-hmm.
do something about this immigration policy that
Yep.
are begging for money, begging for help, and are having to acknowledge that the border is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Watch how quickly they revert back to their normal altruistic rhetoric when the deportations begin.
They're all a bunch of grifters. That's all they are. And the citizens that live in those towns and cities within those Latino and other communities within those towns and cities are going to be golf clapping and being glad that those individuals are not there. Period.
It's
That's exactly what's going to happen.
yeah, they're just a bunch of grifters and the children that follow them.
Mm-hmm. So another spoiler alert: third-party candidates, aka spoilers. So you saw the stuff that I sent you on the polling that was done on third-party candidates when you calculate their existence in a particular race. In this case, obviously, the presidential, right? And what I love about it is when you have Trump, Biden, Bobby Kennedy Jr., Cornel West, and Dum Dum from West Virginia in there. Trump's at 37, Biden's at 33, Bobby Kennedy's at 8.7, Cornell's at 2.3, which cracks me up because he's higher than Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's at 2%. And then when you take out Manchin and you put Jill Stein back in, you keep Cornel West in there, you got Trump, Biden, Kennedy, Jill Stein, Cornell. You have Trump at 41, Biden at 36, Bobby at 12.8, 2.2 for Jill Stein, and you've got 2% for Cornel West. And so there is absolutely an impact with a third party candidate. And those individuals are coming from disproportionately the Democrat side of the aisle, the no labels folks. You've got a few rhino Republicans in there on no labels, but it was primarily driven by Joe Lieberman and a number of other Democrats. So you have so much disinterest and dissatisfaction with the Democrat Party and its massive shift to the left, as well as Biden's policies. You're going to see Perot was 19% with my boss, Bush 41, in his reelect. So he had a massive impact. You will probably see, Rick, when you total it up, 11, I'll be really conservative, 8 to 14% impact. Biden does not get reelected, regardless of how much they cheat.
Yeah.
And even if you see a 6% or 7% impact, you're also likely to end up with that same result. And these guys are not going to let up.
No. Um, I don't think the country is ready for a third party candidate. I obviously don't have nearly the money or resources to make a real impact. Um, Part of me wants to vote for Bobby Kennedy, and here's why. For one reason only, to get a Democrat in that aligns more with the traditional ideals of the Democrat Party. Like a
Mm-hmm.
strong Democrat Party is necessary for America to be functioning at its greatest efficiency. And conceding to Bobby Kennedy and the more traditional Democrats might help shift the narrative back towards, hey, this is a winning way to politics where we actually care about the voters
Mm-hmm.
more so. Like they're always going to care about themselves the most, but at
Right.
least they're going to not be as so blatantly polarized by identity politics. Like when I think of Bobby Kennedy, I don't think of identity politics or social justice or any of that. That's not top on his list. Now, does he stand for
No, not in
something?
a not in a woke tard sort of way. No, of
Yeah,
course not.
like he obviously he's supportive of everybody, which is what I like. Do I think Trump will do a better job? Yeah, but in terms of healing the country, do I think that Bobby Kennedy would allow America long term to get back to some normalcy? Yeah, I do. If I'm playing the short game, I'm going for Trump. If I'm going long game, I'm going for Bobby Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a tough thing because we're in a position. It's like, okay, you got a leaky valve. Do you call the plumber to come in, spend a week redoing all the pipes? You find all these problems, these leaks, this and that, and you're going to suffer, but eventually it's going to be rebuilt in a way that will be uh, better long term? Or do you immediately plug the hole with the best solvent right now
Mm-hmm.
and hope that it holds while you try to find the long term answer? And that's going to be the problem or the conversation we're going to have internally going back and forth because, you know, Trump gave a really good he had a really good outing at the Iowa Fair. When they asked him the questions about retaliation. Like obviously retaliation's going to come. We know that. He took a political he played the politician card, but he said, "Hopefully I'll be too busy to worry about retribution."
Yeah.
And he
He
started
said,
talking
we don't have
about
time for
how
that.
how he wants to serve Democrats and
Mm-hmm.
Republicans. He started talking
Mm-hmm.
like the commander in chief, and it was kind of like a whoa moment for me because I'm so used to Trump bashing Democrats, but it was one of the first times in front of an all Republican audience that he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't roasting liberals and Democrats, but saying like we need to all get on the same side and we need to get this shit figured out. So
Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot that has to be fixed. He doesn't have time for that nonsense, and he's right. Um, so I'm encouraged. He has learned. So yeah, Don Juan, who's in our audience, they are getting in his ear. He has had a well, now 3 year period to get over himself in that regard. And in the last year, and I said this to my wife the other night when he made those conciliatory statements about Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley in Iowa, that he's matured and he understands how to, he wants to bring people together, do it in his own way. Um, I will get to the populist side of that in a minute.
now,
But on the economy, on border, on foreign policy, whatever, he knows that this is a populist election that we're going to have.
yeah,
And it pisses off globalists, if you will, Democrats that are far leftists, and those that are trying to run Biden's campaign, that they can't pierce through that. But they brought that on themselves.
yeah, it is going to be a populist election, and that quandary that I'm going to have come November, there's a way that he could solve that problem for me real easily, and that's making Tulsi Gabbard his VP because
Well, she's on my list.
she's that new kind of middle old Democrat,
Hmm.
goes to the goes to the middle. You solve the female thing,
Mm-hmm.
and you show what a competent female leader can look like,
Mm-hmm.
and you give some concession to the other side. It, I'm just saying, might not be a terrible decision.
So, you've heard me talk about this for a couple of years about potential candidates. The two that are no longer on the list are his two competitors in New Hampshire right now. So, Governor Haley, Governor DeSantis, they will not be on the list. In this order, which is my hope, is Governor Kristi Noem, Congressman Byron Donalds, but I want him to run for Ron's open seat in 2026 as governor in a southern state, Florida. Um, Tulsi Gabbard, although I think Tulsi would be better as Secretary of Defense, quite frankly. That would be fantastic. And still, my governor, Glenn Youngkin, because of his business acumen, but having I'm all about contrast. You know me, right? General election, 50 plus one. You want white wine or red wine with dinner, right? So it's all about contrasts. And especially with this president that we're going up against and his issues and his problems that he's created, um, I think Governor Nome is bulletproof, solid, conservative as the day is long, an accomplished two-term governor, and would be
Yeah.
amazing on the ticket. But I love Tulsi. Tulsi's a surfer, man, so she's got me already. And I knew her when she was up here, but I'd be down with that too.
Well, Tulsi, you can hit the ethnic and gender bingo card.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all pluses. Plus, I love her. Um, Christy Nome, proven, um, would be a strong candidate. She's definitely not hard on the eyes, which will certainly benefit her and their campaign because we all know how people like their politicians to look like they're famous people. Like they like good looking people. Um, Biden and Trump kind of a bit of an anomaly in that sense, but for the most part, they like to have the more slender, less harsh looking individuals. So she would certainly fit in that category. And it's not to knock her down and say that she's only there because of her looks. It's just something that
No, she's not.
kind of
Do you know her story very briefly?
yeah.
So her dad died. They owned a ranch. It almost went into foreclosure, and she had to take it over for her family with her mom and everyone. So she is bulletproof in being able to do things not only that are difficult, but she is able to think on her feet. And she would be a reliable partner in the White House in pursuing the agenda of the president. And very much like Mike Pence, who was also reliable, right?
Hmm.
The same way. But Christie has her own style and her own capability, and I think that would send an enormous message to future women that are thinking about getting into politics and doing things like that. Uh,
It would certainly be helpful because right now uh, you know, I don't want to harp on females in politics. I have a whole theory on kind of society as a whole as we move away from the classical brute strength, you know, the gladiators of old.
mm-hmm.
We move away from that because there's less reliance on physical strength. We're kind of in this new technology age where the mind becomes a bigger tool than this. Now, this does matter. Don't get me wrong. Um,
Well, especially in sports.
yeah, in everyday life, we are seeing that doesn't matter as
Hmm.
much because women have more of a place in society. And you have to erase that difference. You have to that is a benefit that men have over women. We're physically
Yeah, I
stronger.
mean the physical side, but Governor Nome is a strong woman, and I am
And
married to one. I had
that's
one
why I'm
as a
saying it's
mother, and I
important
love him. I'm
because
always
there
there to
are
support him.
strong women
Yeah.
out there. There are also
Mm-hmm.
women that are very emotional, high emotional,
Did you see Uncle?
high
Did you
emotional.
see Don Juan's comment?
What? What? I can't.
Don't go Don Lemon on us, Uncle Rico.
Oh, I'm already there. Look, you see some of these weak men. You see some of these more pacifist, less toxic, masculine men out there, and it's good to have um, a full range of ideas and people. Women are tend to be more accepting, and we've seen a lot of acceptance in society. Uh, for some reason, we're seeing this thing where specifically white women are being almost paying to be race guilted for things
Yeah,
in
it's
the past.
absurd.
And
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
pretty
see a
psychotic.
lot of white men doing this or men of other kinds. It's predominantly women, and I,
Hmm.
I I'm wondering why. What is it about the differences between men and women that the white women are more likely to take this abuse and be told that they're racist, they're diabolical for crying, their tears don't matter, their feelings don't matter, all this stuff. Whereas men are more likely to be like, uh, no. And I'm not saying one is more right and more wrong. It's just interesting to me. So yes,
Unless you're an attendee at Davos, you got both men and women that are completely full of shit.
good.
Um,
Davos, just real quick, it
yeah.
has to be the international convention for Bond villains.
Oh, 100%. And stupid people
Yeah.
with too much money to be even completely credible.
Like I'm
Um,
trying to watch um segments that are just not full of shit and have useful information because so much of it is hell bent on a new world order. But I digress with that. I hate to cut you off, but I've got a doctor's appointment that I have to attend right now, so I'm gonna
Anything
leave you.
serious? I mean, is it Moon River? Anything like that? Using the
Nope,
whole fist
nothing.
there, Doc?
No, I'm probably gonna be due for a good fisting here pretty soon, but as of right now, no. I just
This is a family show. Be careful.
yeah, fisting like go. That fisting is this, right? Where you
Right.
hand up and
Exactly.
support
All
of all
right.
my
So,
brothers and sisters.
all right. So before you go, so I am very impressed with these young athletes. I'm going to do the one that I like and the one that I don't like real quick. I'm really impressed with a lot of these young athletes that are willing to come out and talk about how they pray up at games and are there because of their belief in God. The Brock Purdy's, the CJ Strouds, etc. What's your take on that, real quick?
Cool. You do you. I mean, I really don't care personally. Like, you want to pray, pray. You don't, you don't. I only care when people get in an uproar when they pray. Like, you want to pray before a game, all for it. Like, I grew up with uh, Bobby Bowden. So if you haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen that Bobby Bowden Dynasty documentary, go check it out because he shows how he molds his men, and faith was a big part of it. So if
That's
you haven't
brilliant.
seen that, dude, you
I have
gotta
not.
go.
I have not seen that. I know who he is. I know his faith, but in
Yeah,
that
go to
regard, but I have
Prime,
not seen it.
Amazon Prime. It's there. Check it out. It's so good. It's so good. Like you can't help but to respect. There's a scene where one of his players, it's Peter North, they lose a national championship game. He's like, I prayed about this. I really thought God wanted us to win this. I'm sorry. And he took his guy and he goes, you don't think those boys on the sideline are praying for the same thing?
Yep.
And it kind of hit him. And then he went back in the locker room and did a prayer and kind of just reassessed everything. And it's powerful stuff. So go check it out.
Yeah,
I
I want to
love
check it
you.
out.
Thanks everybody for checking it out.
Give me give me 90 seconds. I gotta say one more thing. 90
Can't do
seconds.
90, buddy.
Okay, we'll do 60. We'll do 30.
Go.
So Ariana Sabalenka, who's from Belarus, finishes a match last night in Australia. She's playing a Ukrainian tennis player, and the thing that pisses me off, and I want to talk about this on another show, is this imposition of not putting her flag on there, like this 24-year-old kid has anything to do with what her president or the Russian president believe and impose on the Ukrainian people. They finished the match, and instead of coming to the net and shaking hands or hugging, they both just go like this, like that, and walk to their respective benches, shake hands with the umpire, and they're done. I was absolutely incensed at that. Drove me absolutely crazy.
So what happened?
So instead of you and I going good game and hugging or shaking hands at the net,
Yeah.
they just walked toward one another, put their hand up like that, and then pivoted right and went and shook hands with the umpire and then went to their seats.
And who are these two? One of them's
Ariana
Russian,
Sabalenka from Belarus
Belarus.
and whoever the Ukrainian person is that she beat just drove me nuts, man,
Oh, okay.
at the Australian Open.
Yeah, I mean it's tennis, It's
No,
sport.
it's imposing politics on 20-year-olds. They have
Yeah,
nothing to do with that. It's
it's
absurd.
frustrating, especially tennis, because tennis is one of those global games. Tennis is
Big time.
very international. It's it's got to be, other than soccer, it's the most international game there is. Um, and yeah, it's interesting to see tennis go that route still. Um, but it's at a point to where when I see people virtue signal and do this, it's annoying. But you know, I look at it like any sort of racist. Like I didn't pay attention to swastika shaved head devil dogs when they were running amok in the streets of Gilbert. I've never paid attention to white robed, conical hat wearing racists. So why would I pay any attention to these racists and let them ruin the day? The difference is obviously they're being supported by major media and lots of money. That part I get being frustrated at. But the best way to get rid of it is to tune it out, turn it off, stop watching. Like that's
Well,
the
for
only
me,
way to
it's
make a change.
I played tournament tennis for 25 years. It's a sport I love. I've watched it since I was about 7.
Yeah.
And, if we're going to apply the standard they have today, Rick, then during the Vietnam War, then they shouldn't have put up any American flags. During the Gulf War for 20 years in the Middle East, they shouldn't have put up any American flags. It's absolutely ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
this mindset they have, I don't look at it as virtual signaling. They are absolutely impacting the game in a very negative way. And you're seeing it spill out on TV cameras through mobile devices, and it just pisses me off.
Well, unfortunately for you, you followed tennis, so uh, they, like much of the world, is going to be late to DEI. So they're probably going to go through their real heavy DEI phase over the next couple of years, where we're kind of on the already did it, kind of over it, kind of not, but more over it. Like as time goes on, DEI has less and less of a holding. Um, And by the time it's not really anything in America, it will probably be still pretty prevalent in sports like tennis. So
That's insane. Anyway, you go do your thing. But when we talk next week, I expect to see you in a Bjorn Borg headband.
I
Okay?
have it right here. I can do
We'll
it right
see
now.
it, baby. That's a Mr. Miyagi headband. What are you doing?
This is I have a
There we
whole
go.
list
There we go.
of bands, dude. Okay, you're
Little
talking
Mats
to the guy.
Belander. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I can't tell if you're gonna like make me some sushi or hit a volley across the net. I don't know. Who knows? We'll
Well,
find
I
out.